Everyone, welcome to Casual Watch Talk Sunday Social. Here for our obligatory Watches and Wonders predictions, like all of the YouTubers. We have to tick the box, but it should be fun, and definitely let us know your predictions in the chat as we go through this. But let's kick it off with a wristwatch check. Patrick, welcome back to the channel. What are you wearing? It's been a while, but glad to have you back.
Everybody in my house is sick, so I'm actually not wearing a wrist. But the one sitting right next to me is my beautiful tantalum Panerai,
lovely.
and I got a new strap for it from Artem, and I'm wearing it more because now it's a waterproof watch with a waterproof strap, and to me that just makes sense.
Oh, good. I was at Wind Up the other week, not last week, but the week before, and I was chatting to your friends over at Vortec. With the pocket watches thing, yeah, we were talking about. They're really cool. They must have had like 50 of them there that they've converted to wristwatches.
Yeah, now they're doing the whole like making watches that aren't pocket watches, so they're trying their own spin-off. So good luck to them.
Yeah, like Colorado Watch Company or something they're calling
Yeah.
it. Yeah, really, really cool. They were saying actually, well, maybe for another time, but they were saying actually during COVID because gold prices went up, people are like re-smelting the gold cases again, like they used to do back in the day. Because gold prices
it's definitely happening now. I get more emails than I'd like to admit for people saying, "Oh, how much is this worth?" And that translates into, "Should I melt this case?"
Yeah, I mean that must be some kind of you must have to morally wrestle with that, especially if it's like a nicely engraved gold case.
Yeah, I kind of, because of the moral wrestling, I made a video about it a couple weeks ago, and that was kind of like the little aside at the end, like, hey, if it's a piece of crap and it's been run over by a truck, melt it. But if it's gorgeous, it's worth just as much as a case as it is as gold. So just sell it as a gold case. But
yeah, I wonder if I bet you somebody's definitely accidentally smelted like a Patek or something, haven't they, over the years?
I bet.
Yeah, Colby, how are you? What you wearing?
Doing well, Sam. I have my a watch I don't wear often, but I love it every time I do. It's my Accutron
lovely.
Space View 2020. Picked this up used, and man, I don't wear it a lot. It's kind of in a weird place between dress and sports, but every time I look at it, I smile. It's just so darn cool.
It is cool.
That's the kind of quartz movement you want to be able to see, isn't it? It's probably the only quartz movement you want to be able to see, that one. It's lovely.
Yes, absolutely.
Is that actually quartz, or is it the ultrasonic thing?
It's quartz regulated, but it's powered by a capacitor that's charged by the electrostatic.
Yeah. So not a tuning fork. Sorry, my brain's not working.
Right. That's the 70s versions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pete, what are you wearing? You're up next.
I am not quite wearing an Alpina 4 from late 50s, early 60s. So try and get that in the light, or not in the light. There you go. That's probably the best way.
Very nice.
So a little bit of burning on the dial. Hands have got absolutely no lume left, but it still runs like a train. It's absolutely fine. I don't understand people that treat vintage watches like they're made of tissue paper. I just wear it to work like I do every other watch. I've had it serviced once. It's absolutely easy to do. Any decent watchmaker can do it. So, yeah, it's just an everyday watch.
Lovely.
Cool. Thomas, what you wearing?
Seeing as Dave's not here, I've got my Scottish Watches Isotope Hydrium Alba. Scottish Watches collaboration with Isotope. So just representing the Scottish Watches crew while they're absent.
Awesome. And then I'm wearing my Veya, my G2 Pacific Steel watch. I'm wearing a little NATO. This is like my favorite NATO. It's one of those toxic ones, but they don't make them anymore. I think they sold the rights to Hodinkee to make them, and then they rebranded them, but never made them again. But yeah, been wearing a quartz watch for ever since I got this from the kind gentleman over at Veya Watches. Okay, well let's kick this off with talking about predictions. I suppose we'll have to start with Rolex, won't we? Just to feed the algorithm and so I can put it in the title. I think the most notable one hasn't there been the land dweller, hasn't it? That even though it's predicted.
Your sound's just gone a bit, Sam.
Oh, good.
It sounds like you're underwater, Sam.
Oh, maybe. Do you know? I think it does this every time. I think when I first pick it up, is it any better now?
Nope.
Yep,
No.
still.
Any better now? Right. Any better? No.
That's it. Yeah,
Now it's
there we
working.
are. And you're back in the
there.
room. You're back in
Do
the
you know what I
room.
did? I just unplugged it and plugged it back in again.
Hey, that's the way.
Awesome.
Like Darth Vader in the bath. Oh dear. I don't know what's going on. You know, it for some reason it does that most streams, doesn't it? It like glitches out at the start. It's so weird, but yeah, it's weird how it does that. So maybe it's StreamYard, but anyway. Okay, so I was saying that the most notable prediction has been the land dweller, hasn't it, from Rolex? So there's a little teaser there. I mean, this looks very official, although it's not been announced. And then Thomas, you were saying that actually Roger Federer might have been seen wearing this.
Yeah, Roger Federer's posted on his Instagram a picture of him wearing one. Just he's sat eating his dinner, but you can't see the dial. You can just see the bracelet and the case and the crown. You can't actually see it in detail. Just the fact that you can just make out that he's wearing one. So
Right.
it's obviously promo stuff, you know, getting promo stuff ready for tomorrow's big announcement of all the entire Rolex catalog that is going to be refreshed for Watches and Wonders. Gets a bit. We were saying earlier, it gets a bit boring though with everything Rolexified these days, doesn't it? People seem to focus just on Rolex, don't they? And seem to forget all the other brands. They seem to forget all the other Cartiers, IWCs, all the etc. And it just becomes the Rolex and Wonders.
I think I think there's two things going on. One, they're 30% of the market, and if you talk about Rolex, everyone wants to watch. That's the first thing. But I think also Rolex is kind of easy to make predictions about. They're not going to introduce this year, potentially notwithstanding. Generally, with Rolex, it boils down to, so are we going to get a new bezel color? Are we going to get a new, like, are they going to shave a little bit off the case? Are we going to get you don't have to speculate about, are we going to get whole new models? Are lines going to be cut? Are they going to bring back this design from the past? I mean, when I sat down to sort of think about my predictions, and if you go look at another brand, you kind of don't know what they're going to do. It could be anything. But with Rolex, it's basically the same couple of watches that they've been producing since the 1970s, just tweaked here and there. So it's kind of easy to make predictions about. And I think that's one of the reasons why everyone talks about it.
So they're doing
that and the fact that it's massive clickbait.
Yeah, they're doing watches, but not the wonders part. Boracic Time had a good one. He said, "Land dweller, what an awful name." It does sound like an insult for, like, you know, ship's captains, doesn't it? Like, they're like, "Oh, look at those land dwellers coming out to sea."
Yeah, the landlubbers.
Given who they are, given Rolex's kind of wrote the book on branding and marketing and naming, it's kind of shocking if they go with land dweller. It's kind of shocking they dropped the ball so badly, because it is awful.
Yeah. I suppose they had to, though, didn't they? Like, unless it was like Earth Dweller or something, which I suppose is even worse, isn't it? Because they got Sky Dweller, Sea Dweller. I suppose they had to probably box themselves into a corner there. But I mean, I guess I guess this probably is real, like 90% chance that this is a real prediction for a change.
Yeah, a real leak, a leak that became true.
It's got that feel. Although maybe this is just over the last couple of years that we've seen more and more leaks, and they've got kind of we've got more and more confident believing the leaks, but every single time they've tricked us, whether it's Tudor or Rolex. So maybe it's just like they've pranked us so often that they have to go really deep into it to get us to believe. So this could just be a huge prank.
Yeah.
I've got a suspicion it's real. I'd probably, if I was going to bet other people's money on it, I'd probably say it's real.
Oh, yeah.
Is it, I mean, so Brit did quite a few predictions, and so did Adrian Barker, but Brit, I think, was, or I forget, one of the two of them, I think it was Brit, was saying maybe they will do an actual oyster quartz, because that is the case from an oyster quartz. Like, I wonder if they would do quartz. I mean, I happily wear quartz watches as well, mechanical.
This was my first prediction, and I think it's almost certainly already wrong for this year. But I really think that will happen, right? Industry, a lot of watch enthusiasts are abhorred at the idea of quartz, but I think once Rolex releases a quartz, then all of a sudden quartz is going to be cool. And you'll see the industry as a whole move toward the adoption of, especially, things that if Rolex releases like a high accuracy quartz or some kind of new quartz tech, I think people will be running to compete with whatever they have.
I think you're spot on there. Well, does that mean that would Tudor then do it this year if Rolex isn't going to first?
Oh, that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Well, I'll put my foot into the soup on that one, and I 100% completely disagree. So you guys act like Rolex actually innovates or does anything new. They don't. So for them to design their own quartz movement and not only have it be revolutionary and wild, that was 1970s Rolex. That is not today's Rolex. So I know Pete is just completely in 100% agreement with me on this. I think the design is kind of cool. I like that they brought the oyster quartz if they're bringing that back. I think it's awesome there's an exhibition case back, but I mean, that is as far in the world of innovating they're going to do. There will be no more innovations, no quartz. It's going to be a boring release that the world is going to fall in love with, even if they don't love it. And that's a typical Watches and Wonders.
I mean,
Rolex does step backwards. They try and move forwards, don't they? But I mean, there was talk about them trying to take on Grand Seiko prior to the announcement, prior to people saying that this has got the movement from the 1908. This land dweller. There was talk of them trying to take on Grand Seiko and maybe possibly doing a quartz movement, which, like Colby said, would be interesting if they did challenge Grand Seiko with their quartz movements and spring drive, etc. But I think you're right, Patrick. I think you're right. They don't move backwards.
This is exactly why I think they will do it, because so many people think they'll never do it. And I think they're contrarian in every possible way you can be contrarian, even against their contrarianness.
I think Rolex go backwards all the time. We just don't notice it. Rolex have gone up in size and back down in size. Rolex have made their cases chunky in accordance with fashion and then shrink them back down in accordance with fashion, like what happened with the Maxi case. Yeah. I think we project a lot of what we think Rolex should be on Rolex. And we don't really pay attention to the long cycle. We tend to just look at the last 3 releases and imagine that's how the world's always been. So Rolex moves slowly. Rolex doesn't, which makes it tricky to see what they've done, but they've gone backwards, and their last Daytona started introducing more sort of vintage-inspired vibes. They've started bringing casebacks back, which they did a long time ago. display case back. So I can see a world where they do go backwards. I think one of the big issues I have with the idea of Rolex going quartz is really two things. One, exactly like Patrick said, they tend to kind of wait for everyone else before jumping. Maybe they're thinking Grand Seiko has paved that way and that they can see that market, so maybe they're thinking it is safe to go into. The other issue is that it kind of flies in the face of Rolex being all in-house. I'm not aware that they have the facilities to grow crystals and make all of that stuff. And they're very famously like, we smelt our gold and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I wonder if going to outsource a movement might be a bridge too far. But on the other hand, those big factories that everyone talks about Rolex opening, maybe this is what one of them does. So
so we got some comments coming through. So Dave says they've leaked the video with Rolex website showing the movement. The Land Dweller is mechanical. Why are we talking about quartz? We're talking about it because the case of the Land Dweller was what the oyster quartz looked like, and Brit or Adrian predicted they might do a quartz. I mean, quartz actually, because arguably, if that lady's date just the 26 or whatever it is the best-selling Rolex, it would make sense to have a quartz version of that. Like they do, like Cartier tank. Cartier will never go fully mechanical on the tank, and I bet you the tank quartz outsells the mechanical versions.
Yeah, Cartier, Patek, Breitling, they all do in their really small 28, 32 millimeters.
Yeah.
They're all quartz.
Right.
The cater for the ladies. They cater for the quartz. Yeah.
Quartz.
Yeah.
What it's got a quartz.
I think you can make an interesting comparison to Apple on this point, because there are all kinds of features that Apple didn't adopt until well after everybody else, and then all of a sudden the cool phone had it, or the cool tablet had it, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, famously Steve Jobs made fun of styluses, and he said, "No, that's so awful. Who would ever use a stylus on a phone?" And now today, Apple makes one of the best styluses you can buy.
Yeah, and I was actually watching an interesting video today about the fact that Apple are making such a song and dance about Apple AI for it to have not yet actually come out. Over a year ago or so, they've been announcing it and doing billboard ads and stuff. Okay, let's get back to the comments. So, Orange Hand says the new escapement in the Land Dweller movement sounds pretty innovative.
Let me defend that, because I know that all came in when they were saying, when I was harping on them for not being too innovative. I mean, let's be real, guys. Rolex has the same base caliber movements for the last 30 years. Yeah. If they finally made a new movement type that they copied from another brand, are we really going to give them tons of credit? I mean, I'm glad they did it, but I'm not going to kowtow to Rolex and be like, oh, thank you for stepping up to the likes of every other good brand out there. And don't get me started on AP, because AP doesn't do anything good with their movements either.
Yeah, I mean, they're escapements. That's why they all have. That's why they've all had metal case backs in the past, because they're nothing nice to look at. The Rolex movements in general, but this dual impulse escapement has been it's going to take them a good 5 years to get off the ground. I think it's only talk at the moment. I think I don't think it's in the Land Dweller. I think it's been talk that the 1908 movement is in the Land Dweller. So I don't think this new movement is in the Land Dweller. The one that they've sort of copied off Breguet.
Maybe not in the Land Dweller, but I don't think they would show us the movement if it wasn't in a watch. So I'm giving them more credit than that. I think they've actually put it somewhere. Maybe not in the Land Dweller, but I don't think they would brag and be like, "Hey, we're making it." Like I think Rolex, we made it.
Actually, I've got to admit, the one thing I found, and this is coming from a guy who's not a bracelet guy, but the thing I found most interesting about the Land Dweller video was the bracelet. If I'm not correct, if I'm right, is that a butterfly clasp?
Yeah.
So what I'll be fascinated is, does it come with micro adjust?
Maybe they copied
Dun, dun,
Christopher
dun.
Ward. in
I
that sense.
don't think it's
No.
butterfly. I think it's a normal clasp, but it's
how do you get?
It's a hidden clasp.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I'm going to be
it's,
fascinated how they get them. So even if it's not a butterfly, how will they get micro adjust in there? I mean, the Christopher Ward one's a bit agricultural.
Christopher Ward is more of a friction-based sort of force thing, isn't it? It takes some brute force, whereas Rolex is a little bit more refined, isn't it? Than
And Vacheron
not only
has
that,
too.
you see the gap, and
yes,
on an integrated bracelet, you cannot see the gap. The gap must be absolutely invisible, and that's why I say everyone, like even Vacheron, have done something, but it's kind of a bit agricultural because you can see when you open it up, you can see a gap in the bracelet, which is unacceptable. So yeah, I'll be fast if Rolex. You know what, Patrick? If Rolex have come up with a way of having a good-looking bracelet that has that kind of that's integrated that way with micro adjust of some sort, tip of the hat to you. That is innovation. No one else has managed to do that so far.
Yeah, I love what I see in the bracelet. I mean, it looks like the old Super Jubilee they used to have. I think that's an awesome bracelet. So I think besides we haven't gotten to the dial yet, but the dial renders, I think the rest of the watch looks fantastic, and I will be marching down for a obligatory put my name on the list so they can never give it to me to my AD.
Yeah, two from last year's Watches and Wonders you put your name down for.
Oh,
and I guess neither's come.
I've been on the list for a green, in which I know is the I guess most rare sub, but for a green sub for like 3 years now. But it's the only sub I want. I don't. If it's just a black watch, the only thing that makes that watch unique is that it's got a pop of green. So without the green, I'll buy something else.
Yeah, should we? So we at the Land Dweller. There was some other predictions that I think Brit did a good job because she was doing it on some kind of leaks, wasn't she? That she'd seen, but I think she'd straight up predicted maybe a green dial Rolex Explorer 2.
I think that was a GMT, green dial GMT. I think
Just bright.
Yeah, she was doing a white. She said a white dial GMT Master 2, and then a green dial Explorer 2. That's what I took from it.
I think it's a white dial Explorer and a green dial GMT.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
At this point, it's dial and bezel colors, and I sort of zone out.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And then a root beer with a stone dial.
Yeah.
That was a reach. I mean, I've seen that video too, and they're like, "Is it Tiger's Eye?" I'm like, or is it just a faraway photo? So, yeah, I don't really see that, but you never know.
Well, it's the 80th anniversary of the Datejust, and I want them to do a stone dial Datejust. And I think it might come in precious metal, full gold, but I think that the 80th anniversary, this is what this Land Dweller is all about. It's about taking the Datejust to the next level. I mean, the Sky Dweller was the next generation of the Air King. The GMT Master was the next generation of the Explorer 2 sort of thing, and well, it came before, so that's wrong. But this Land Dweller seems to be the next generation of the Datejust. Yeah. So it seems to be an evolution of a line of watch.
To me, it just looks like they took 3 of their models and mashed them together. You have a Datejust and an Explorer and an Oyster Quartz, and they just stuck different bits of those together.
Yeah. What's funny is, I mean, the Datejust, the modern Datejust is just, for all intents and purposes, are integrated bracelets, because even if you get the bracelet off, which is an absolute pain in the ass, there's like such a sharp lip on the underside. Because when I did my Datejust review, I got Macola at Man Cave Leather to make me a 21mm leather strap so I could show what it looked like on a leather. There's a almost serrated edge on the underside that basically just destroys the leather strap. Have you seen this, Patrick, on your?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a lip. So for all intents and purposes, the date just is integrated because you actually cannot
they
get
put a little piece of steel in there to make sure that that bracelet never wobbles. But you're right, it destroys every other strap you try to ever
destroys
put on
every
your
other
watch.
strap unless you get the. I had that rubber B strap, but the rubber B had actually molded it in. But for for the average person, I wonder if the average date just buyer, whether integrated is maybe a step too far, perhaps. But
one of the options could be, like we were talking about on the introduction, is Rolex. It would be interesting, Thomas says something interesting about the Sky Dweller sort of taking the Air King somewhere else and making it more. It's interesting in a world where the Milgauss has kind of gone away and doesn't seem to be coming back, but now they're potentially introducing something that elevates the date just and makes it more than it's been in the past. Maybe this is part of sort of a grand scheme, a 50, 60-year scheme for Rolex to move past, out of the zone that it's in now. And, as I was saying before, it's kind of the watch you buy before you buy an AP. Maybe they're trying to get into that AP territory. That would also make sense why they're starting to talk about jewel escapements and that sort of thing. When you want to get out of the ruck of middleweight watches that they're in at the moment and enter the heavyweight ring, you need more than just your basic three-handers and a simple chrono.
Yeah, so Thelonious Monk, thank you very much for the super sticker. Thelonious Monk said, why do all watch brands drop releases on the same day during Watches and Wonders, knowing only a handful like Rolex and Patek will get all the attention? But I think it's more of that like rising tide raises all ships, doesn't it? Like the focus of that entire week is all watches, where so there's a lot of column inches. So I guess the hope is that you can sort of piggyback on the overall just it's like the Oscars, isn't it? I suppose
and remember 2 years ago though, because Omega I guess isn't part of this, so they dropped their moon swatch like 3 or 4 days before Watches and Wonders, and they stole the show. So.
Well, and last year they did the White Speedy just a little bit before.
Yeah,
and you have other brands. I mean, you have things like IWC coming out with the Eternal Calendar last year, which stole the show. I mean, it was a GPHG winner.
That said, I'm with I can't say that, Thelonious. I'm actually with him. If I ran a major watch, if I ran a small brand that wanted to piggyback on that kind of hype, then I'd probably be stuck going to Watches and Wonders. But if I ran a brand which I felt was competitive, I wouldn't go. I think you're doing nothing but putting a big sign up saying I'm happy with second place.
But is Watches and Wonders also trade? It's also a trade show, isn't it? So aren't you trying to get your watches in? No, is that not true, Thomas?
No.
I think
it's trade.
Yeah.
I think
yeah. So because it didn't replace Basel, it replaced SIHH, and SIHH was always just a Richemont thing. And I think Richemont, I often wonder if they really regret opening the doors to Rolex, because now, essentially they've set up a show that 2 other brands have stolen from them.
Yeah. Rolex and Patek basically fund mostly, I think, Watches and Wonders. It's funded mainly by Rolex and Patek. So they've got the main hall to themselves, apart from a couple of other brands. But it's mainly, the focus is, as you walk in, it's Rolex on the left, Patek on the right. Yeah.
And thanks for the super chat, James Blonde. Thank you very much for the generous super chat. But I don't know. I still think that there's this that all eyes are on that watch industry at that time. So there is column inches. I mean, most publications don't stick to just doing Rolex. I mean, some YouTubers do it, but like the Pinky and those type of people don't. I mean, Scottish Watches, they've got appointments all over. So I think if there's all eyes on it, then
I think one of the things that always gets me is I was listening to a podcast and these guys were talking about we're going to like 27 different Oh, woe is me, I'm going to Geneva for a weekend and I have to talk about watches with people. I feel sorry for me, boys. But I found myself thinking they're probably only going to write about half a dozen of them. So they'll go to a lot of appointments, but they'll only talk about a few. And yeah, like I said, I'm absolutely hard over. If I was Swatch, I would not go within 100 miles of it. If I was Breitling, I wouldn't go within 100 miles of it. I think it's a good place if you're at either end of the dumbbell, but I wouldn't be if you're kind of wanting to compete at the high end. I wouldn't go.
Well,
sorry, Colby, carry on.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's mostly for watch insiders. I think mostly watch insiders care about it. So I don't think it's really effective advertising for people who aren't already following those brands. So, in other words, you're not going to get more excited about Breitling if that's your favorite brand because it releases on Watches and Wonders as opposed to another time of the year.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I think it's sorry, Sam. I think it's very good for the smaller independent brands who are higher brow as well. I mean, you've got brands like Gronfeld, Ressence, Laurent Ferrier, Ferdinand Berthoud, Chapek, Arnold and Son. You got all those brands they're set off in a different hall. In the independent sort of hall, and it's a really good outlet for them to expose themselves to the public.
Absolutely, I think it really does make sense for them because no one's going to fly to Geneva to see a Ferdinand Berthoud release. They're just not, and not unless you're in like a country that borders Switzerland. So and they don't compete with Rolex. They maybe sort of compete with Patek, but not really. If you're buying them, you're probably not buying Pateks. So you can benefit from having the eyes drawn to you, but you don't lose anything in being put in second place because you're not even in their race.
They're bringing.
So that makes sense.
Yeah, so I wonder how many people just wouldn't go to Watches and Wonders if Rolex wasn't there. I feel like it is drawing the crowd, and then these other brands benefit from the footfall, maybe. But okay, we did like 30 minutes on Rolex.
You've also got another thing is you've also got a lot of satellite shows that happen outside of Palexpo where Watches and Wonders is happening. You've got a load of satellite shows in Geneva. There's another one called Time to Watches, which is 1 minute's walk away from Watches and Wonders, which is micro brands, everything under $5,000. You've then got a lot in Geneva Centre. You've got a load of other independents showing in different hotels. You've then got a show called the AHCI show, the Academy Horology Creators Independent, which are the top independent watchmakers. They have their annual show. So it's more than just Watches and Wonders. It's a whole watch festival, in fact, in Geneva at that time of year. So it's more than that.
Cool. No, thanks, Thomas. Okay, well let's move on then. And Colby, I'll go to you and then to Pete shortly afterwards. But what your Tudor predictions? You're our Tudor fan.
Enough of Rolex. Let's talk about Tudor.
And Patrick is.
Yeah. I actually am excited about Tudor. I recently moved on from my Tudor Pelagos LHD because specifically I thought that they were going to refresh the normal Pelagos line with the Medas movements. So I'm hoping to see one of a three-hander or a GMT in the new Pelagos movement, which means that the new ones on bracelet are going to be, they would be slimmer and they would have that Medas certification. I am personally betting on that happening because if that happens, I will run out to my AD and buy one tomorrow.
Pete, are you, that sigh is the sigh of ambivalence, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, so we might see some minor changes to the same watch we've been seeing for a decade and a half. Yeah.
It's funny though.
So-
A lot of people think that Tudor stole the show last year. Because everything from
And a lot of
Rolex and
people
gold-
believe in And a
Oh
lot of
my
people
gosh.
believe in angels and the flat Earth and that the moon landing was faked. The reality is that the online presence of Tudor bears little or no resemblance to its actual sales, and that everyone is excited about it is purely the result of marketing.
I don't think so. I think maybe retail, but if you look at the secondary market, I think Tudor does a lot better on the secondary market.
What I see is a huge amount of turnover of a relatively small brand. So I don't think it does do that well in that I see a lot of people buying watches and then desperate to sell them.
Do you know what? I see a lot more Tudors. Maybe this is a US thing. I see a lot more Tudors in the wild than any other brand other than Rolex. I think. I mean, obviously, I'm not talking like Apple Watch. Obviously, is like the top one, isn't it? And then your Seikos and your Casios and stuff like that. But sort of luxury, I see a lot in the wild. Tudors.
I haven't seen one in the wild in Australia.
Yeah, I don't see them much, but I've seen a couple.
If I went to a red bar, it's kind of Rolex or bust, and I don't see them in the wild.
Well, regardless, I hope and think that I do think that it makes a lot of sense to me that is what, in fact, that they will do.
I think you're right. If I was going to, I can't get excited about this, but they've been doing the same thing for a while, refreshing the watches that they've got. Clearly, as they do the refresh, the production line moves into their MEDAS certification quality zone, and then they start whatever. So I think every watch as it gets a refresh will move, because MEDAS is less about engineering and it's more about the quality control process. So I think what they do is as they refresh the design, they refresh the production line, and then they get the quality process, and then they get the MEDAS certification. And so I think that will happen. I wouldn't be surprised if we see an Oyster Prince come out. Again, Tudor are big on. They've really doubled down on the kind of recycling their watches, but they don't have a lot in their history. So the Oyster Prince is kind of the only other place they can go.
They have proved that out, haven't they? They did have the gold.
Orange Hand pointed that out about the big block coming back, but as you say, they did that for only what in gold, but I've had a lot of people complaining, saying they don't like that 750 layout of the subdials at 12, 9, and 6. And I also think if they did bring out a big block, it'd kill the current chronographs that they Tudor.
Thank you so much for the generous super chat. Thanks guys for the super chats.
I think the Breitling Tudor relationship is on the rocks. I think that's only got a limited time frame to run.
The movements, you mean?
I think Tudor, Breitling haven't put out a new watch using that Kinesi movement in 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
It's been sort of retired. You can get it in a couple of the Super Ocean Heritages now. That's it. And Tudor's treating the B01 powered chronographs very much in that kind of run out mode. Like, how do we because it was never a big seller until suddenly they've got I think they're getting to the end of the run and they're saying, slap it in the carbon case and throw a pink dial on it. Okay, take the next 500 and put a blue one on it. See if we can just burn down the inventory. Both sides feel, and now Breitling went all in on went half in on a new movement, and it absolutely has nothing to do with Kinesi. It's yeah, I don't think that relationship's got much longer to live. So that's one of the reasons why I think an Oyster Prince is definitely coming. I just don't know when. And this year's as good as any.
Well, maybe it'll have a new chronograph Metis movement. Maybe that'll be the new movement that they move to Metis.
Absolutely. I think every movement they make from now on, and it's not just the movement because it's about the case and how and as I said, it's mostly a quality control thing. So I think that every new Tudor from now on will, in exactly the same way as it is with Omega, once you've got the quality management system set up, you may as well just send every watch through it.
So we've done that. What do we think of the other brands that are going to be there, like Patek? Do we think they're going to do more cubitus?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, guarantee it. Yeah, there'll be some more complications.
And is that a good thing? Do we think? Like, I mean, I wonder. We'll probably never know if it sells well, but I presume people wanting to get a Patek, they're probably being offered those first. I'm guessing.
I think it's quite the reverse. I believe it's selling at a premium, and there's a massive wait list, and it's really hard to get.
Yeah, I mean,
really?
I'm the weirdo in the room. I actually don't think the Cubitus is that ugly.
I quite like it.
I like it better than the original Nautilus because I think the original Nautilus's just form and shape is just kind of dumb looking. Like it doesn't really look like a porthole. It doesn't really look like what it's supposed to be. It's just not pretty. I will say though, I'm anti the Cubitus because I think it's completely lazy that they recycled the exact same bracelet and they didn't make a movement to fit the case. And so, they did some good changes in my opinion, but they made some very lazy changes, which doesn't speak to the quality that Patek should be.
That's a really common complaint amongst a few of the Patek people that I know. They've said they actually quite like the Cubitus. Their problem isn't with the watch, it's with what they feel like is a lack of effort for the watch.
Yeah.
So, if you're going to sell me a watch for, what is it, $40,000, $60,000 or whatever it costs, I can't remember what it is in the various currencies, then I expect to see a bracelet designed for it, not just a translation of the old bracelet. I expect to see the movement sized to the case, not just a carryover movement. What technical difference does it make? Nothing whatsoever.
Yeah.
But it's like, if I'm spending that much money, I expect you to put a certain amount of effort into it.
Yeah,
and they feel like
did
the
up the
effort's
price.
lacking.
I mean, because it went from like a $30,000 watch to a $40,000 watch. So I mean,
that's right. Yeah.
It was a big enough price that you better put your pants on and do some work, and they didn't.
Yeah, but I mean, there was a classic case of, I think the price was more about trying to achieve an outcome, which I don't think they achieved, rather than any reflection of the cost. Well, that's the same as every watch, but this one makes it really clear. I think they actually wanted to dampen demand. When Patek got a lot of flack for saying, we're bringing in a new watch, we want it to be more available for more people, we want it to be more accessible. Oh, by the way, we're raising the price by 10 grand. And there was a lot of people saying, oh, I don't understand how, those two things don't line up. But in Patek world, they do, because the reason the Nautilus is so popular is because it's relatively inexpensive and you can immediately flip it at a huge profit. And I think, and so therefore the only way you can get on to buy a Nautilus, strictly speaking, they're almost entry-level watch, is to have bought hundreds of thousands of dollars of Patek in the past. I think their idea was raise the price, dampen demand. Young people that haven't bought, very wealthy young people that haven't bought a Patek, can walk in, drop their 40K and walk out with a Cubitus. I think that was the plan. It failed. It's too successful. There's a waiting list. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, it's odd. I think. I mean, out of the other brands that are going to be there, I always. One of the things I always look forward to is Cartier always come out with something cool, don't they? But it's like diamonds in liquid or
they've got a back catalogue that goes back ages. They brought the Monoposoir chronograph last year. That was great. I'd really like to see Cartier do some good stuff this year. Other brands I'm interested in are the dying brands, Zenith, Panerai. I'd like to see them do something different. Panerai, bring out a different case. Zenith brings a diver that we actually like. They've got back catalogue of divers that we actually like, not the diver extreme that they brought out, which I hated. I want to see some really nice dress watches as well from the likes of Lange and Vacheron and people like that. There's a whole host of stuff I'm hoping to see. What will we see? I'm excited, to be honest with you.
I like that morning show that they do, but they do that morning show, don't they? I always watch that on YouTube Live, which is pretty cool. But should do. So Thomas, thank you so much for that. But Pete, is there any other brands that we've not mentioned that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm looking for the big non-traditional brands. I think that it's going to be a quiet year for the core LVMH, Swatch, and Richemont groups. Watch Pro recently did an interesting article on the massive leadership changes that are happening across those groups. And I think that a lot of in that churn, I don't think the incomers are going to be all that committed to the ideas that the outgoers probably had in mind, but they haven't been in there long enough now to come up with their own plans. So I'm expecting that to be pretty quiet. I'm really looking forward to what I think have been the most exciting watches of the last couple of years, which are watches from non-traditional watch brands. So I'm looking forward to Bulgari, Louis Vuitton, Hermes, Chopard, Dior, Chanel. I think those will be the interest. That'll be where all the excitement is.
Yeah, Chanel always has fun, don't they? They always have a little quirky design. But Colby, anything? I mean, we've been through your predictions, but is there anything of the brands that we've not discussed, or maybe the ones that we have discussed that you're looking forward to the most?
Not really. My favorite brand overall is IWC, but I don't have my pulse on the finger of their design team enough to have any idea what they're going to do. I mean, for goodness sakes, who could have predicted the Eternal Calendar last year? Most of the other watch brands that I follow closely are not ones that are particularly associated with Watches and Wonders.
Yeah, Patrick, go on. Same question to you.
Well, I've got two, and I'll punch in on Colby's just because I saw this for like a minute on Instagram, and I haven't really heard anyone else talk about it. But IWC made some picture, and it looked like a black Ingenieur. So was it ceramic? Was it a DLC? I don't know, but I swear I saw that picture, and I was kind of.
A Ceratanium Ingenieur would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, or even a Ceratanium, but just something
it would
like
be
that.
It'd be ferociously expensive.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, that would bring that watch into like. I was interested in the watch from the start when it was kind of normal, but as I sort of thought about it, I was holding myself back, saying, "Hold on, they're going to do better. Like, give them some time. This is going to be a whole line of watches. They're going to either make something unique, something limited edition, something with a cool material. Like, give them some time, and maybe that is their time. And if that is, I'm pretty excited for it. And then the other one, I'll punch in on Thomas's, because ID Guy made a really great video about Panerai, and he kind of went on about why Panerai wasn't as good as they used to be. And I think it's simpler, because Thomas was saying, like, I think they should come up with a new line. And I disagree with that. To me, Panerai is like Rolex. They've got their staples. They just need to change them. Coming out with a brand new Panerai, I think it weakens them. But what Panerai's got to do is they've got to do some internal innovating. Quit all this stupid materials that cost 3 times more than normal steel that's just steel. Like, just make a rugged watch again. Maybe get rid of whatever movements you're using right now that aren't very exciting. Bring back some good old 8-day power reserve, manual wind watches. Go back to their roots and make their prices come down. Which I
Yeah.
know that means it probably never happened, but
Yeah,
they
Eric Grimes is saying that Panerai is IWC and Panerai have a pricing problem. I think a lot of brands have a pricing problem.
yeah. Oh,
No.
I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah.
And I mean,
All
if
brands
you've
do.
got a
Yeah.
if you've got a special watch, I get it. I mean, like my Tantalum Panerai, I'm not gonna lie, it was god awful expensive, and its brother, the chronograph, was even more god awful expensive. But it's unique. When you're buying a steel watch, you could buy a steel Seiko for $100. So I mean, quit telling me
Yeah.
that steel is
Yeah.
some crazy material.
That
Your
recycled
watch,
steel was
yeah,
ridiculous. It's like
Panerai, your
I
watch
know a
shouldn't
lot of those
cost
guys.
8K. Like, yeah, it's a 6K, 7K normal watch. Weird variants can go up, but as I said, if they go back to their basics, make the cool I lost my word. What's the name of their dial? Sandwich dials. Make
Yeah.
the sandwich dials, make 8-day movements, have them have exhibition case backs so you can see them, keep them all super water resistant. Maybe it doesn't have to be 300, but at least let it be 200. Have it be a diver's watch, and then maybe bring the size down to 40, 42. I think they could really bring themselves back. Panerai, if you're hiring, I'll come
But-
work for you.
But if they
Yeah.
Watch Chris has a lot of Panerais as well. I think his wife used to actually work for Panerai, but back in the day. But yeah, so Java Babas was saying Ed Sheeran was wearing that watch on TV. I think he's talking about the Black Angenoux TV. There's also rumors that Bremon. I'm not wearing my Bremon today, but I've still got it. Are going to bring out the Martin Baker.
MB2.
Yeah, so they've been sort of teasing it a little bit, which would be interesting. And they're doing a lot more of this like rugged stuff, aren't they? As well, I've noticed. So maybe they're going back to some of their greatest hits to see if they can.
They definitely need something to excite people because
I find them incredibly dull and boring at the moment, but it would be interesting to know if Bremont's actually making money. And if they are, then mission accomplished for the new ownership. I do not know. It is funny that I think every brand is trying to do, like the gold standard is be exciting and make money. Most brands seem to be able to do one or the other, but not both. And it's, I think I quite found, I didn't love the old Bremont watches, but I loved that they existed. They were interesting and they brought something that other people didn't do. The new watches are just like really vanilla. They could come from anyone. But maybe they're making money. So why would you change?
Yeah, I actually love my Bremont far more than I thought I would, but I wouldn't. There's nothing in me that. I mean, I quite like this one, but I quite like it because it looks like a lot of other watches. To your point,
that's right,
Pete. Yeah, it's not. There's nothing.
Do you like it or just not dislike it? It's kind of in that that kind of zone. Yeah, and I think that's the case of a lot of watches at the moment.
Yeah,
you guys just reminded me of something. Where did that Bremont integrated bracelet watch go? That released like 2 years ago, and I mean, I think that was the biggest turd in the watch market. I mean, I was in New York. I saw it.
It didn't. It was like a mashup. The one that was like a mashup of like lots of different watches. It looked like it was like a bit of a Royal Oak, and there was
it
kind of like
the Supernova
remix
or something weird. But I mean,
let's have a look. Actually, that would be funny. That
I feel like that watch was out for like a year, and I mean, and they did a lot of R&D to make that watch.
They did,
different.
And they went all in, didn't they, on it?
Yeah, they went all in on that watch, and I think they also went all in on their partnership with Horology on the K1 movement, and then they went all in on trying to make as much of the K1 movement as they could in England, and none of which made money.
Yeah,
So
you're in luck, Patrick. That
Yeah,
they're
there
in
it
stock.
is.
Look, yeah, it had like the AP's, the Royal Oak bracelet.
Yeah, I mean, I said what I remember most was I put it on and I turned my wrist this way, and there's like gaping holes because the movement sticks down so deep. And yeah, you can see those like V-shaped holes on the side thing. You could almost stick your
Right.
fingers in there. Like it was beyond ridiculous,
Yeah.
and it was expensive.
Yeah, I'm excited actually mentioning Haraj, and it was listening to Scottish Watches, and I was hoping Dave could join so I could give him some stick because he was talking about friends that he saw at Dallas, and I didn't make it in the friends or the enemies category. So I'm like an acquaintance, a casual acquaintance somewhere in the middle. But he was mentioning that Haraj are bringing out a new affordable movement, and it's going to be in the sort of I think the 2,000 to 3,000 Swiss francs range. This new movement with a So I think maybe I have seen it, but that would be a really cool thing for them to do. It would be that they're. I wouldn't. Do you think actually? I suppose final question here is based on like the whole world economy that's happening at the moment. I mean, most westernized countries people are definitely watching the pennies, aren't they? Do you think anybody's going to bring out a more value offering like? I suppose Breitling did with Gillette, but Gillette or whatever it's called, but that's not coming out for a few years. But do you think anybody else will be?
I don't think so. I think.
Yeah. Good.
I think that a lot of people compare what's going on now to like 2008 and say like back when the financial crisis came and the crunch came, and again, people just imagine that the past will happen exactly as it is now, but the world is fundamentally different to how it was back in 2007. I think people have forgotten that just a year ago, it was a year ago, brands were still complaining that they could not hire enough people. So this is not an environment where brands have got massive bloated workforces that they have to keep paying for during a down. They couldn't hire enough people a year or so ago. Over COVID, they shed 15 to 20% of their workforce, and they have not rehired them. That cost base is gone. They've now got online sales. They've got their own boutiques. Third-party distributors are basically dead for most brands. They just sell direct to retailers if they're not selling themselves. All of those things that used to build up big inventories and add cost, they've all gone from the market. So I think most of these companies can probably, and you see companies like, Breitling with their new watch, when they brought out a new movement, they were very deliberate and really open about the fact that we're not going to be employing people to make this for us. We're going to be outsourcing the manufacture of this watch. So I think everyone is now structured so that they can contract and expand in accordance with the market without having to dump inventory, without having to cut prices, without having to go to extreme lengths. So I think, funnily enough, I think the brands are all going to be fine. I suspect most of these brands make money. Maybe not as much as the investors would like, but if you look at the Richemont and the Swatch and all those, they're making a profit despite being in these horrendous conditions.
Right. Well, the movement is right. The watch market is going upscale, so the lower end is not. Volume players are losing out, and the ones that are expanding or making more of a profit are the ones who have raised their prices or selling a lot of the high-end stuff. It's my understanding.
There was a movement manufacturer that actually went out of business, wasn't there? So I'm sure some brands are going to be feeling it. I forget, Scottish Watches mentioned it. I can't remember the name, but I don't think they said it.
Well, there's some, for example, I think sometimes going out of business means you don't trade as that person anymore. So Breitling, for example, have partnered with AMT, which is a high-end part of Solida for making their new movement. But then if you do some research and find out what is the postal address of the the business AMT, it's actually the exact same postal address that the old Eterna watch company had. And if you look at some of the directors, go into the company directors, it's the same people turning up. So
Interesting.
I think what's happened is Solita wanted to go up market, so they bought another manufacturer. They've called that AMT, and AMT now partners and does kind of like bespoke builds for brands. So they do a bespoke build for Breitling, they're doing a bespoke build for Tag, that sort of thing.
Oh, cool. Oh, very interesting. Cool.
Interesting.
Well, we'll no doubt be doing this next week when all of these predictions will be proven wrong. But at least we have fun. A big thanks to the panel, and thank you so much for everyone that was so active in the comments. Appreciate it. Thanks for all the super chats and the super stickers. Very much appreciated. If you want some exclusive content, please join the channel, and we'll see you next week on Casual Watch Talk Sunday Social. Bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.